Hi friends, and welcome to my painting of an apple. Here you see me placing the object. It's a composition and it's a very, very important stage. Why did I move the apple around? Because putting something in the middle of the canvas almost makes it look like it's a target. And I have to have some space for the cast shadow of the apple. So I cleverly moved it a little bit to the left. Take your time for the composition and placement of your subject. Sketches, delete the lines, add the lines as long as you need until you make it into a nice composition. For this little painting, since it is the study of an apple, I simply decided to put some gray color background. I mixed a very light gray for the foreground and a same mixture of darker gray made of black and white for the behind the apple. And you will see that behind the apple, actually, right on this area, I decided to make it super, super light and like almost white. And why, you may ask, is just to make the apple pop even more than just adding a solid gray background. Yes, that would work. You can put a solid background in there and study the apple, but I decided to make this actually into a little nice painting presentation. And the background is very, very important because it brings your subject to life. The background is like the supportive actor on a movie. Here I'm using my blender to blend the edges of the darker gray and the white. I think at one point I even had a brush that was a makeup brush that also worked. But if it's not good quality, it's going to start losing the hairs. So just make sure you have a nice fluffy blender, and it can be makeup brush. So when you start painting your object, the first question I ask is, what color do I see? And I paint with information which you will see throughout this whole video. And so first thing is, what color do I see? Well, red. So I simply add red to the whole area. I don't dodge, I don't think about the shadow, nothing. Just fill it in, block in all the red. And then you're gonna also have to ask if it's a bright red, a dull red, if it's light, medium, or dark, and what hue is the red? Well, in this case, this is a red straight out of the tube, cadmium red. Let's make it easy. So this is the value that I call mother color. And here we are going to add the shadow area. So if my light source comes from the left, the shadow will form on the right. And guys, please forgive me, this angle where I was filming was terrible. I agree and I apologize. But as you continue watching the video, I'm going to get to the second sitting on the apple, and then I move the camera around and it's much better for you to follow. So let's talk about the shadow color and what color do I add to my red so I can make a darker red? Well, I'm going to add a darker red to my red. So I have cadmium red, and my darker red on my palette is alizarin crimson. So I'm going to add a little bit of crimson to my cadmium red and make this shadow color. Here I decided I wanted the shadow to be a little bit darker. So what do you add to red to make it darker? You add the complementary color to red, which is green. In this case, because I'm using cadmium red, which is a warm red, I choose sap green because it's a warm green to mix into that red. Make it a little bit darker. That is the secret of red, guys. Just add the complementary color to make a beautiful, colorful, darker shadow color. And I am just simply refining and trying to create a nice transition from my light red to my shadow color. And so I do a lot of feathering and always clean up my brush by wiping it with my paper towel. This cast shadow that I'm adding to the apple is also gray, black and white, but I wanted a warmer gray. So I added a little bit of my raw sienna to it. There you go, that's the cast shadow. See, I'm painting with information and I'm adding all the values that I know an object has, at least to create the three-dimensional illusion. I had the mother color, I need a shadow, I need a cast shadow, and then I'm gonna work with the highlight and the reflection. Okay, now what about how to make this red lighter? No, let's not add white because we're gonna make our red pink. So we are going to add yellow to our mixture. If you have a medium yellow or a lemon yellow, you can try those mixtures. Add it to your red. Look how beautiful in a lighter red I have there just by adding yellow to my mixture. So now I'm paying attention to the anatomy of the apple. You know, the apple has that indentation where the stem comes out from. So the light has, it hits the back of this indentation. I added a little bit of orange to the turning point before the shadow, but this is a subject for another video where I'm gonna cover how the turning point can be added as an artistic decision and with information to anything to create the illusion of the turning. From the light to the shadow, I meant. So again, little by little, I'm adding a little bit more light and more yellow because I thought I didn't have enough contrast. And that's what you're gonna have to do when you paint. You make decisions to make the painting look better. The reflection, I decided to mix alizarin crimson, the cool red, with a little bit of white, and then I added that color as a reflection on the apple. Forgive my hand, the angle. I had to put the hand in front of the camera to be able to add the stem on the right angle. So the stem also has a shadow side, has a highlight side, and it has a cast shadow that casts on the apple. You will see me adding that. And here I'm cutting into the stem because I thought I made it too thick. And so I fixed it. I got the background color and I cut into the shape. And so that is the beauty of paint. You can fix it, fix it, fix it. This lighter color on the stem is the highlight, and here I added the cast shadow of the stem to the apple. Look how neat that is. So the principles go to everything you paint, and the beautiful final highlight, which I call whoosh. Stick around, my friends, for the second sitting. This apple took a few days, maybe 2 or 3 days. I just let that sit until it dried, and you will see how much better and refined the second sitting is. And yes, a painting is a series of corrections. We are so lucky that we can use paint because everything can be adjusted and refined, and you can make it look better. See, I keep messing with it a little bit here and there, just small adjustments. It's all visual, it's all this is decisions that you can make as an artist. Because I want to make this painting look cute and better and almost perfect. Here's another whoosh just to make it a little bit more wider. And then here I'm going back with the same gray, but a little bit darker. So I made a darker gray just to accentuate this shadow under the apple. Doesn't it look better? I think it does. And so that's what you do. All right, here's the second sitting when the apple is already dry. I'm going to go back and sort of like repaint the main colors that I've created. But I know that when the apple turns, and to make it look more round, it's darker on the edges. I know that. So that's why I'm going to paint with information. And I'm going to use this same mixture, red with crimson and sap green. And I'm going to introduce that to these darker areas that I already established on the first sitting and refine this apple a little bit more. Just pushing the paint into the red. I also taking advantage of the sitting and checking if the shape of the apple is correct, and I can make small adjustments. Again, I decided to go even a little bit darker. That is actually a personal taste, guys. Everything I paint is colorful and bright and has a lot of contrast. So my style is to make my object really, really pop and make it colorful. I want you to make your own decisions as well. See, this is the pure cadmium red. Going on top of what I already done makes it look much, much richer and clean as well. These are the same colors, guys, but once you paint on top of your first investment, It makes the apple look even better and brighter. That is the lighter area. Again, I'm lightening my cadmium yellow with my cadmium red with yellow. More yellow, and study the light. You can place an apple and put a spotlight on it and study what the light does to it. I see that the light hits back there, and then I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that indentation on the back of the apple. And my colors are very, very simple. I keep going back and forth and refining and making the blend look very smooth. And it's all done with my brush with a lot of patience and love, which is what we need when we paint. Even though this little painting took me 2 sittings of 20 minutes. Oh, my whoosh again. Oh, I love highlights. I think that's my favorite value. I decided to cut it. I call that stage make it, break it, and make it again. See? Just to give it another set of dimension to my highlight. And here, I think I speed up the video on the original editing. And I decided I would go even lighter behind the apple because something was telling me that I wanted to clean up the background as well and make the apple pop even more. So you'll see that I will add clean white paint, and it's sticking really nice to the background because it's dry. And I can clean the edge of the apple. Yeah, you can do that too. Just be neat and take your time and paint like an artist with love and care. Keep reloading your brush. Always pick paint. Don't work too thin. Keep reloading your brush. I always load on both sides. And I have these back and forth or crisscrosses and all kind of ways to apply the paint on a neat way so it covers the canvas well. You want the canvas to look rich with paint and not super thin where you can see the little white areas. I also decided it would look better if I go lighter on the front plane as well and just clean up that first gray that I put on the previous layer. And I kind of use my eyes and I judge as I go. And I tell you guys, sometimes I'm not successful and sometimes it doesn't work. And if I need to redo a whole area because I'm painting with oils, I have to wait a couple of days until I can readdress it again. It's hard to fix the oils when it's super wet. Then the paint will not. It keeps mixing with what's underneath. I think I spent more time creating the background than the apple. Don't you agree? I'm going to have a whole video on the importance of the background. So I finally switched into a really, really skinny brush just to make sure I have a more defined shadow area for my stem and the cast shadow on the apple. Yeah, that was a good call. And I almost forgot to add the highlight. Same mixture, guys, the crimson with white. I think it made a beautiful, beautiful reflection color. But it's the reflection color. Oh my gosh, I could put whatever reflection color I wanted. If, say, for example, the apple is sitting on a green table, the reflection would probably be green. If it's sitting on a yellow table, the reflection, you can add yellow to the reflection. Here I am with my fluffy brush again, and I'm going back and forth, and you will see the struggle sometimes it is to make it nice and smooth and create a smooth transition. And so give yourself some time and make it pretty. I think I smudged a little bit of the background color to the side of the apple, so I'm going back in there to fix it. Oh yeah, that is my other blender. It's a little skinnier, so I can control a little bit better because the big brush was going onto the apple. And so fixing, adjusting. A painting is a series of corrections. Keep correcting. And think of it as the presentation of the apple. Oh, look at that. I actually have so much fun painting these simple objects. They are a joy. And you should be painting 1,000 apples. Study an apple. Hold the apple on your hand. You need to know what you're painting in order to make it believable and make a presentation of that subject. In fact, that's the only way you're going to be able to paint from memory after you study something for a long time. You study the eyes, study the lips, study the nose, study a vase, and then, only then, you'll be able to paint or draw by memory. No one can draw by memory unless you study it first. Oh, my background, I think, is starting to look the way I want. Beautiful. And then, yeah, you can do crisscrosses, you can do zigzags, and in this case, I'm doing some circles. Your brushes are your tools. Switch brushes around and use all these different